You ever get into one of those arguments where you and someone else are looking at the exact same facts, but you end up on completely opposite sides? And the craziest part is, you're both totally convinced that you're the one being logical and objective. It's a super common, super frustrating thing, and it really gets at a deep puzzle about how our minds actually work.
So, why does this happen? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we have to look at this classic idea from philosophy. But the thing is, it's now backed by a mountain of modern research. And it completely flips everything we think we know about, well, thinking, right on its head. This is the big mystery, right? And we're not just talking about heavy stuff like politics or religion. This happens with sports, with business decisions, even with arguments over the dinner table. So the real question is, if reason was just pure logic, shouldn't we all arrive at the same answer? What is really going on under the hood? Okay, so get this. Nearly 300 years ago, a philosopher named David Hume drops this absolute bombshell of an idea. He argued that our feelings, our desires, our passions, they're the ones in the driver's seat. And reason? He claimed reason isn't some noble king guiding us. Nope, it's more like a really clever chauffeur who's just paid to figure out the best way to get to a destination our emotions have already picked.
This gives us a really powerful metaphor for the mind. We like to think of ourselves as impartial judges, carefully weighing the evidence. But modern psychology tells a different story. It suggests we're much more like defense attorneys. We start with a conclusion, our pre-existing belief, and then our mind's job is to go out and find all the evidence it can to build the most persuasive case possible.
And this isn't just some dusty old philosophical idea either. There's a huge wave of modern research showing just how deeply our minds are wired to defend our beliefs, not necessarily to discover the truth. The psychologist Jonathan Haidt has a really compelling explanation for this. He says that when we make a moral judgment, it happens in a flash. It's an instant gut feeling, an intuition. And all that logical, step-by-step reasoning we're so proud of, that comes after the fact. It's basically a press secretary being sent out to justify a decision that's already been made.
Haidt demonstrates this with something he calls moral dumbfounding. You can give someone a scenario that's kind of weird but totally harmless, and they'll immediately say, oh, that's just wrong. But then, when you dismantle every single logical reason they give, they don't change their mind. They just get flustered and end up saying, look, I can't explain why, I just know it's wrong. The gut feeling is the anchor. The reasoning is just the rope we throw out later.
This leads us straight to Zivakunda's work on motivated reasoning. This is our unconscious tendency to hunt for information that confirms what we already want to believe and to downplay or ignore anything that challenges it. And the most critical part is, while this is happening, it feels completely objective to us. We genuinely think we're being fair and balanced.
Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman made this super clear with his model of two systems in the brain. Think of it like two gears. System one is our fast, automatic, emotional gut reaction. It's running the show pretty much all the time. System two is our slow, deliberate, analytical mind. We like to think System 2 is the CEO, but a lot of the time it's just the PR department writing press releases for whatever System 1 just did on impulse.
And the dominance of System 1 is, well, it's staggering. Research from Stanford suggests that as much as 90 to 95% of our decision-making is driven by that fast, emotional, intuitive system. That tiny sliver we think of as pure, cold rationality? Yeah, it's a lot smaller than we like to think.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak for the idea of truth, doesn't it? If each of our minds is basically a biased, self-justifying lawyer, how does anyone ever figure anything out? How could science or any kind of knowledge possibly move forward?
This is the really critical question. Are we all just stuck inside our own emotional feedback loops, only able to believe what we want to believe, or is there a way out? Well, it turns out there might be, but the solution isn't where you'd probably expect to find it. And this is where Mercier and Sperber's amazing theory comes in. They argue that human reason didn't evolve for us to sit alone in a room and discover the secrets of the universe. It evolved for social interaction, specifically for arguing. Its main job is to help us convince other people and to evaluate the arguments that other people are making to us.
And this is its secret superpower. See, I'm terrible at seeing the flaws in my own logic because my emotions are all tied up in it. But I am incredibly good at spotting the holes in your argument, and you're just as good at picking apart mine. So when you put a bunch of us biased thinkers together in a group, our individual biases can actually start to cancel each other out. Truth isn't a solo sport. It's a team effort.
What's so fascinating is that this cutting-edge scientific consensus, it isn't entirely new. The idea that our minds are inherently biased actually echoes a much, much older diagnosis of the human condition, one you find in ancient scripture. For example, there's a verse in the book of Jeremiah, written thousands of years ago, that describes exactly what researchers like Haidt and Kunda are finding in the lab, that our core being, our heart, is prone to self-deception. It bends reality to fit what it already desires.
This suggests that there are two different problems going on when we disagree. Sometimes it's just an intellectual challenge. We just don't have all the facts. But often, the problem goes deeper. It's more of a spiritual challenge. It's not just that we can't see the truth, it's that our desires make us actively resist it. Our reasoning becomes a prisoner of what we want to be true.
So, if modern science and ancient wisdom both seem to agree that our thinking is inherently biased and vulnerable, what does that mean for anyone who genuinely wants to find the truth? What does that kind of quest actually require from us? Well, it seems to require, first, a deep humility, a real admission that our own perspective is probably flawed. Second, it demands community, because we need other people that challenge us and point out the biases we can't see in ourselves. And third, it requires a standard, some sort of truth outside our own easily tricked minds that we can measure our conclusions against.
From a theological perspective, the solution to that spiritual challenge is a concept called illumination. The idea is that to overcome a deceitful heart, you need more than just better arguments. It requires a kind of divine help that goes deeper. It's not just about giving you new information, but about changing your desires so you can finally want to see the truth you were previously pushing away.
So, ultimately, the journey to truth might be less about stacking up facts and winning debates. Maybe the real work, the hardest work, is about finding the humility to ask ourselves a crucial question. Is my reasoning serving the truth, or is it just a slave to what I already want to believe? The challenge isn't just to know more, it's to learn to see clearly.